Welcome to the Emotionally Baked podcast, where emotions and baking are the two most perfect ingredients. Hello and welcome back to Emotionally Baked, podcast where we talk about our emotions and while we're baking something yummy. So join me today as we explore bitterness and brioche. Okay, so today we got a cup of coffee and we're gonna make brioche. I don't think I've ever made this before. The recipe sounds like pretty simple, like a dough. We're gonna fill it with some yummy stuff. So follow me along for the ride. This is gonna be crazy. So I'm gonna start out with just some warm milk and some yeast to get this activated before I start making my dough. So I'm gonna go ahead and do that. It's a half a cup of milk and 2 1/4 teaspoons of yeast, and we're just gonna start that up. Okay, so I'm gonna go ahead and put the dry ingredients in the stand mixer because that's how I'm gonna mix it. Paddle mixer helps a ton. So, bitterness. So, the recipe is from savoringmoments.com. I'll make sure to put that below. And yeah, I'm just literally putting the flour, sugar, salt in this stand mixer, and then we'll mix it all together. Okay. So I don't know. Bitterness is not a fun emotion at all. It's not fun to feel. It's not fun to have. It's not fun to recognize, because generally I am a pretty positive person and I don't like to feel bitter about things. I don't like to feel that kind of taste in my mouth of just like fresh, like I feel like bitterness is such an and it's so hard to describe. I feel like it's hard because there's so many things mixed up into it. Sometimes with bitterness, you're angry or you're frustrated or you're sad or there's so many conflicting things that wrap into bitterness, and it's hard to label it. But I think sometimes I notice that I'm bitter the most is when I'm complaining about something, or it's on the forefront of my brain too much, and I'm thinking of it and I'm just letting it consume my heart. I'm letting it consume my thoughts. I'm letting it just run things. And that's when I realize that I need to that bitterness is overtaking things, and I need to kind of pull it back a little bit. And lately I have had some bitterness spring up, and I've noticed it. So I think I've mentioned on here many times that me and my husband take walks, and that's the time I feel like I can get things out, emotions out. And I promise I am trying to make my birds not chirp, but I put a blanket over them, and sometimes they calm down and sometimes they don't. I guess they're just happy right now. So they're going to be a little chirping. I apologize. If you hear them chirping, you probably do. So yeah, I was walking and talking with my husband, and I think that's where I get a lot of my emotions out, a lot of my feelings out, is just walking and talking with him. And yeah, I just had these feelings, and the only thing I could describe them was that I guess I'm just bitter. I'm bitter, and I don't want to feel it that way. I don't want to feel bitter. I don't want to feel upset. I don't want to feel, complaining or frustrated, or I don't want to feel it all in that construct of bitterness. I don't like that. It was really good to talk it out and talk through it, and I'm hopefully working past my bitterness, but we're going to dive a little deeper into it here in a second. So I've got my dry ingredients in my stand mixer for my brioche, and what I'm going to do, I'm just going to take a light whisk and just kind of get them all together. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to, so it says with a paddle attachment, is to put in the yeast, milk and yeast, so it's like bubbling up. And and the eggs and kind of slowly incorporate everything, and then some softened butter. And we're just going to incorporate that. So I'll video that. We don't want to hear all that noise, but I'll video it when we get there. And that's what we're going to do. This, after the dough is made, it's got to sit for like 2 hours. So I'll come back to making the recipe when this is mixing, and then we'll roll it out and we'll get to that. So, but in that meantime, we're continuing. We're diving a little deeper into our chat. Some things I'm trying to, the things that I'm bitter about currently right now are a little fresh in my brain, a little too close in the forefront. So I'm gonna try to think of something past, so I can give an example of bitterness versus like how it's different than frustration and anger or being mad or things like that. I'm just gonna try to give an example so that you can we can relate to each other. Okay, hold on for a second while I get this on my stand mixer. Okay, so I've mixed that now in the stand mixer, and I'm just gonna transfer it to a greased bowl that's not the stand mixer and cover it and let it rise. It's gonna rise for a long time, so it's gonna have a long time. Look at that, it's so beautiful. So this is our brioche dough. We're gonna see if it works. Never tried it, we'll see. So I'm gonna cover that up really quick. So hold on. So I was trying to think of an example of where a bitterness to talk to you about that has happened. The one that came to my mind that I don't think I've spoken about on here. I don't think I have. I might have, but I don't think I have. Is I started teaching in 2010. And I wanted to say, as I was thinking about bitterness and what it meant and things, it's like a sense of resentment, but of like deep hurt and disappointment. So all those things together kind of equal bitterness. So it's like a deep hurt and resentment for something that's been done to you. And therefore you are bitter about it. I think that makes sense. Okay. So back when I started teaching in 2010 at a school, and I was a paraprofessional. I was moving from different classrooms to kind of help out different teachers and do different things. And that's kind of where my art teaching kind of started. It kind of started there. So I was working with a teacher, and the teacher was unfortunately pushed into early retirement. And since I was the paraprofessional in the classroom, I was highly educated. I have 2 degrees from college. And they hired me as the long-term substitute to finish out the year. And yes, they did do this in the middle of a school year, which was very kind of confusing to me. Anyways, so they hired me as the long-term substitute in the middle of the school year. And I was happy to do it. I had already been working with the students and the other teachers, no problem. They sent out an email and a notice to parents saying that this is what was happening and, blah, blah. They had made their decision. Okay, seemed like everything was going fine. Well, unbeknownst to myself, and unable to stand up for myself or speak for myself, or parents, I guess, were not excited about the fact that I was the long-term sub. Now, this was just to finish out the school year. This happened like in February, March, so it was only like 3 months left of the school year. March, April, May, like we were done. And I guess the parents were not happy that I get bitter again. So a highly educated professional who had already been in their students' classroom for the whole part of the, most of the year. Was asked to be in there. I'm not quite sure. I wasn't allowed to know. I don't know why I wasn't allowed to know, or I wasn't allowed to speak for myself, or nobody was my advocate, I felt like. The parents expressed their disdain for the decision, and even after they had announced the decision, had solidified their decision, and everything was changed over, and I had actually been teaching with the kids for 2 weeks, I was pulled into an office and told that they were taking back their decision. The administration was taking back their decision, and that they would be, And even though I was in the meeting, there were people who I knew in the meeting, so this was for a private school. There was somebody in the meeting who was a personal friend, or a family friend, also a pastor that I thought was a family friend, or a friend of mine, and I felt like nobody was on my side for whatever reason. I didn't understand, and I wasn't, I was told I did nothing wrong, and I was told that, this was just, a decision that they had to make because parents, wanted something different, which is their right, which is fine. But I guess the bitterness stemmed from, you already made a decision, you already told everybody, the kids are already used to me, and then it's only for 3 months. It's not like I was going to become the full-time teacher. It was just for 3 months. And the fact that I wasn't supported or couldn't be supported left a really bitter taste in my mouth. So that was the story of, or the one that I could think of, that kind of led to some bitterness that I had. And I think you can see why I was bitter. I want to show you the dough. It rose for about 2 hours, and it turned out really well. So I rolled it out. What I'm going to do is that the recipe says to put a custard. The recipe I'm using, now I think you can use brioche dough for pretty much anything that you want to. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to put a custard on it, and then I'm going to put some chocolate chips. That was the one I saw. So I cheated, guys. I got a vanilla custard from the store and just cooked it on my stove. So I'm just going to pour a little bit here on the side. So it said on half. So on half of the dough, I'm going to pour the custard. And this was a cook and serve one. So I believe, we'll just try to evenly spread it. I'm not quite sure. But anyways, then I'll sprinkle it with some chocolate chips. And then after that, it said to cut into strips and then bake. And I think you bake it in strips, not like individual. And you can cut it up. You can cut it up smaller if you want. But this is going to have to rise another 30 minutes. So I'm going to just sprinkle some chocolate chips on here. And so that situation, and I had my kids in the school in which this occurred, and so I decided instead, because they were like, well, you can still stay as an assistant, and I probably should have stayed, but I was so bitter at the situation that I just felt like I couldn't stay. I felt like it wasn't, I just couldn't do it. And so I just said no, thank you. But then again, I had kids in the school, so I had to kind of hold out, I had to go through the rest of the school year with doing, being in the school. There was like a science fair that I went to, and then And it was like, it was so awkward then, because like nobody wanted to chat with me, and I was just like, why are we making it awkward? Like, I don't know, I almost felt like the parents made it awkward. So I was like, well, y'all knew what you were doing. Like, I don't know. All right, so I cut this into strips. I'm going to place it on the pan, but I'm going to let this rise again for 30 minutes. Okay, so I made a little egg wash that's going to go on top of the brioche when it's done rising for the second time. And yeah, then we'll put it in. I think it's only like 15 minutes that you put it in till it's browned, obviously. So yeah. So the bitterness was quite strong. I felt it was a resentment towards, and hurt and disappointment towards those who had trusted me and who I trusted and who had, made promises, and even towards the families who I had grown a relationship with. At this point, I had already worked at that school for about 3 or 4 years. So the parents knew me, they knew who I was. It wasn't like, and this was a grade that it wasn't like kindergarten, they knew me for a while. And I had known their kids for a while, and I had taught them for a while. And so there was a lot of hurt, bitterness about the situation. Like, how could I not be, how were my feelings not taken into account? Why was I not even given the opportunity to even just plead for my case to like last the school year out? Like, because the kids knew me. I had been working in that particular classroom all year anyways as the assistant paraprofessional, so they knew who I was. It wasn't like it was just a random classroom that I got plucked into. And yeah, it was such a weird situation, and definitely one where I felt very bitter towards. And I think, I'm trying not to, I don't hold on to that bitterness of that situation too much anymore. It brought me to other, as soon as I said, okay, well, I'm not going to come back, and I'm going to just take some time. I'm going to take these last months of school to just reevaluate what I'm doing with my life. Do I really want to, do this anymore? It led me to my more full-time art teaching jobs, which was a blessing. It was a blessing in disguise. So it all worked out. And when you look at things hindsight, you see the hindsight. You see okay, so it did work out. It was for the best. It did, everything panned out how it was supposed to. It was just getting there was the thing. So bitterness is a hard pill. It's a hard pill to swallow. It's a hard one to manage, because I don't like to be bitter. And then I look back on my bitterness and I go, okay, the times that I was bitter about something, that it was, okay, the situation worked itself out. You probably didn't need to be so bitter in that situation. But, if you're going through same bitter situations, I am currently going through a situation where I feel resentful, where I feel, disappointment and resentment, and I'm just trying to say, okay, remember the times before when you were bitter about a situation, and it ended up working out. And so you just need to take a breath. And I was able to talking out my feelings. Talking out feelings is like the biggest thing for me to do to help a situation. So talking out my feelings really did help. And it helps here now. So I talked with my husband, and then I talk here, so it almost helps me feel like I've pretty much, okay, good. I mean, don't get me wrong, I love myself a good therapy. which reminds me, I need to find another therapist. This is my ADD brain, like, pew, pew, like, I do need to find one. Anyways, I will do that at some point. So, friends, just know that if you're walking through a bitterness journey at the moment, I am too. And I'm trying not to let bitterness leave a taste in my mouth. I'm trying to say, okay, you had your feelings about it. I'm trying to be a big girl and just take a deep breath through it. And hoping that on the others, like I've talked about it, I've worked through some of the bitterness feelings, and hopefully I can manage. Yes, manage. So, anyways, I'm going to, when 20 minutes is up here, I think it's only 20 or some more minutes, we're going to let it rise for a little bit. And I'm going to bake it. I'm going to put some egg wash on it. I did make an egg wash. I'm going to put that on top. We're going to bake it and hopefully it'll be like a yummy treat breakfast. I think it's more breakfast. I don't know. We'll see. So we'll have that and hopefully it'll be yummy. So friends, whether the salt in your recipes comes from tears or a teaspoon, just remember we baked it out.